Happy Snoggletog fun people, it's that time of year for you to grab your thickest pelts and drink some Yaknog as we get excited to celebrate this magical Burkian holiday. But how did this tradition begin? Well, Snoggletog was a holiday established by the Hooligan tribe many generations before the birth of Hiccup and the other dragon riders, when the Vikings realized that around the winter solstice each year, the dragons that typically tormented the Isle of Burk ceased to attack their homes. You see, during this time of year, all of the dragons that lived on Burk would travel southwest to a place known as the Rookery so that they could actually lay their eggs. On that island existed a lake surrounded by golden sand, rocky mountains and steep cliffs, and most importantly, hot water pools, which were fantastic because those boiling water spots were able to control the baby dragon's explosive release from their eggs. Literally, when dragons came out of their eggs, they would cause a fiery blast every time, so those pools helped control a lot of that damage.
The eggs explode.
But once the dragons hatched, they were some curious, dangerous, and high-energy little creatures who had so much personality even when they were just hatchlings. I mean, even when we just look at How to Train Your Dragon 2, it was difficult to watch over them even when they were completely alone and surrounded by other dragons. That's likely another reason they ventured to the secluded island, so the dragons had the chance to take care of their uncontrollable dragon hatchlings while being completely isolated from any threat that could disturb or hurt them.
Babies, of course. Listen to no one.
But of course, it didn't take long until they were ready to flap their wings and to head out into the world. As soon as the hatchlings began to fly on their own, the dragons were ready to return to their normal lives on Burk, whether that was going to war against the hooligans or being the villagers' favorite companions. And typically, this whole process of laying, hatching, and raising the dragon hatchling would typically only take around a week, which meant generations of Vikings on the Isle of Burk got a few days without any raids, destruction, or danger from dragons each year. And as soon as the Burkians noticed this annual occurrence, they began to make a holiday of the occasion. And this type of connection between how the dragons behaved naturally, causing changes in the behavior of the Vikings in Burk, is just fascinating to me. I love how a simple little holiday in How to Train Your Dragon can have such a fascinating backstory that ties the Vikings and dragons together in a new way. But Snoggletog only becomes more interesting when we actually get to see the holiday evolve over time as Viking culture changes, as seen in Gift of the Night Fury and later on in How to Train Your Dragon Homecoming. Two wonderful holiday short films that I definitely recommend if you're a fan of the series. Now, while the Hooligan tribe quickly learned to take advantage of the ceasefire by celebrating all of their grand battles from the past, preparing themselves for many more into the future, Snoggletog wouldn't always remain focused on celebrating their violence. Over time, the winter holiday became more and more ingrained into the Viking culture as yearly Viking parties led to the Hooligan village developing yearly traditions. So even when the hatred for dragons disappeared, their holiday didn't stop, because after generations of celebrating, it got to the point where every villager got excited for this holiday they called Snoggletog. On Snoggletog Day, Vikings became fond of bestowing helmets, boots, or the occasional weapons to those they loved. And over time, the children were led to believe some of the gifts that were left for them in their helmets were brought to them by the god Odin. These gifts were given each year on Snoggletog morning, which led many kids to anxiously wait to the night before, and led shopkeepers like Gobber to become very busy each season to create all of the gifts requested by their clients.
We've only got 4 days until Snoggletog. 3 if you don't count Black Plague Friday.
Yeah, nothing gets done. Everybody's just shopping and coughing.
But the Vikings of Burk didn't celebrate Snoggletog alone or just between their families. In the center of their village, the Viking tribe would build out of a tree trunk a green cone-shaped framework with shields all across it. And there were often colorful lanterns, jingle bells, and ornaments all around the villagers as they sang hunting songs, partied, and consumed vast amounts of food. And that last point is definitely something I can relate to. All too often I eat way too many of my Aunt Debbie's Christmas cookies, but this year I'm making a deliberate effort to not overdo it as much as I have in other years, which I guess is helped by the fact that I won't be visiting much family this year. But on Burk, they didn't eat cookies. Some of the delicacies we have been told about include eating pet yaks and the oh-so-delicious turtle, egg, and elderberry pudding, but most famously, the villagers would drink the horrible beverage developed by Astrid known as Yaknog.
It's Yaknog. Wanna try some? It's my new traditional drink.
She was one who was very passionate about that time of year and wanted to establish a lot of new traditions, and Yaknog was the biggest success. And while the How to Train Your Dragon Facebook page might say that there's a recipe that includes milk and maple syrup and vanilla and a bunch of other good tasting ingredients, the School of Dragons game combines eggs, cabbage, yak milk, and kelp as a base for the drink, which made it something pretty much universally seen as deplorable, allowing the drinking of Yaknog shots to become a Snoggletog tradition where Vikings would attempt to keep down the horrible concoction. Regardless of what they all ate though, every Viking would gather at the decorated Great Hall to celebrate, eat, and catch up with their friends on Snoggletog. It just grew into something that their community rallied behind, and for many years that included getting the children involved. On the night of Snoggletog, the youth of Berk would traditionally put on a pageant to showcase the Viking warriors massacring dragons and triumphing over the beasts, not only to teach the young Vikings the history of their warrior people, but also to inspire the hooligan tribe to keep fighting another year. Even on their one break every year, the Vikings couldn't stop thinking about their battles with dragons even for a day, until they befriended the dragons. The addition of dragons into Berk didn't stop the holiday from continuing, but only recontextualized the meaning of their celebrations. When the dragons were present in the dragon riders' lives, Snoggletog became a day to appreciate the dragons in their lives. The traditions didn't stop happening, they only continued to evolve to include the reptilian companions. The Vikings loved having their dragons with them for their favorite time of year, which is why when the dragons left New Berk to go to the hidden world, a large hole was left in many of New Berk's residents. Sure, generations of Vikings in the past might have looked down upon how they had celebrated Snoggletog with dragons and how they would continue to remember them, but to Hiccup and Astrid's generation and those who came after them, it was important for them to look fondly at the bond that had been built between Vikings and dragons, as well as appreciating the influential Berkians who had helped change the course of their tribe's existence, like Stoic the Vast. And that's exactly what was shown in the Snoggletog pageant when it was brought back 10 years after the dragons went into hiding, when Hiccup wanted to instill in his children how much Toothless and his father meant to him. I can't believe I recorded almost this entire video without all my lights on. Much better, much better. Anyways, over that time, families also had begun making their dragon's favorite food to symbolize how the dragons were close within their hearts.
On Snoggletog Eve,
Yeah?
I'd make Toothless his favorite meal. Even though he's gone, I still make it for him. A lot of families do stuff like this.
Snoggletog may have begun as a way to celebrate the peace that came when the dragons hatched their young, but over many generations, the traditions that had been built up continued to change along with the meaning behind them when the Vikings' relationship with dragons transformed. On New Berk especially, Snoggletog became a time when the Vikings stopped to remember and appreciate their history, their flying friends, and the love that tied them all together. Fun people, I ran out of time last holiday season to share all this information, but now that I got to finally talk about Snoggletog in a T-Rex ugly sweater, I'm definitely in that Christmas and How to Train Your Dragon mood again, so let me know if there are any videos you'd like to see soon. Also, make sure to subscribe and click the beautiful bell if you're new, and then click on another magical video in the description or on the screen. Finally, as always, thank you to my patrons, thanks for watching, and have a magical day.